what Professor Ray was going to do. So we wish Trina all the best, and we'll no doubt hear more from her. Okay, now for the main event. I'm not going to say too much because Kimberly is going to talk about her own journey, but I'm delighted to have Kimberly with us. Anyone with a balance disorder will be aware of VeDA. You should be aware of last week the launch of a series of documentary episodes, Life Rebalanced Chronicles, that Kimberly has produced, directed, and was her idea. And before that, Kimberly was already a documentary producer and director over in America, but was then struck down with a very, very serious balance condition. And I'll let Kimberly then explain her journey. But all I want to say is I think Kimberly's got some really great insight into what it is to live with balance conditions. And because of her journey, I think she may have some things to say that can help us all. So Kimberly, welcome. I'm going to shut up and we're just going to listen to you. So
before Kimberly jumps in there, just I can see still a number of people who haven't got their mute buttons on. If you can please put your yourself on mute, that would be really, really helpful. Kimberly, it's all yours.
All right. I'm so excited to be here, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. This is a very vulnerable thing to just speak about, and I'm still in the early stages of getting my own thoughts together around this. So bear with me. I'm actually, and you probably noticed too, I stand. I don't sit very well because movement is I always experience movement. So if I can distract my brain a little bit with like a 3-inch foam pad under my feet, that helps me not feel the movement that I feel in my head as much. So if you see me rocking back and forth, or if that's visually disturbing to you, I apologize in advance. I'll try to limit my rocking. So we were going to share some videos today, but we realized that the internet is not going to allow for that. So I'm going to, Kevin is going to share a few links at the end of this talk that you can refer back to if you want. But I'm going to just start with the beginning. So I think all of us share that experience of what it was like when that moment suddenly changed everything for us. For me, it was quite sudden. In 2014, I was in a gnarly bicycle accident and broke my pelvis. Nobody at the time, I cracked my helmet, hit my head, but nobody at the time thought anything had happened other than the big crack in my pelvis. But also, strangely enough, during the same week, I started to uncover some very unnerving details about my paternity and the fact that potentially the father that raised me, who I adored, who died when I was in high school, was not my father. So I had a fracturing happening in the foundation of my body and my identity within a week. And I say that because I really believe that they both played a part in the development of what I have. As we all know, our nervous systems are intricately, can't say that word this morning at 8 a.m. They're very intertwined in our experience of balance. So fast forward, bed rest, feeling fine, not feeling any dizziness whatsoever, and recovering and starting to walk again after 2 months. I thought that the physical destabilization was over. I thought that I was coming back to life. And within about a month, I started to experience vertigo attacks. I had the first one when I was in the car. I had the second one sitting down having dinner, and they were very intermittent. So, whoa, you know, the world starts to spin around, and then all of a sudden I'm fine again. It definitely left me concerned. It always left me feeling like I was about to pass out. I had a history of blacking out. And so that was sort of my connection in my brain of like, am I, you know, low blood sugar or whatever. So I got scared. I mean, as we all know, fear comes in pretty quickly when our experience of our body changes dramatically. And I sought help from my primary care physician. Of course, no answers there. And I muscled my way through it for a while, thinking it was going to go away as quickly as it came. We tried, you know, various hormone tests, things like that. I continued to travel, and I found myself in some situations, even when I was traveling on jobs, where I had to literally go to the team and say, I have to go home. I can't stand up. And as soon as I got in the car, of course, everything was fine. I don't know if any of you experienced that, but I have the mal de débarquement syndrome. So as soon as I'm in passive motion, I am like normal as I can be until we're at a stop sign. So I didn't know how to deal with this. I looked normal, completely normal. And my husband, as wonderful and compassionate as he is, he didn't know what was going on with his wife. He thought that I was probably losing my mind. And granted, I had this going on, the paternity stuff going on at the same time. So I think there were some question marks around, you know, whether Kimberly was having a psychotic break. I was suddenly unable to operate in the way that I operated. And I was a complete can-do, jump in, whatever, never fear, never had a panic attack, never even felt nervous before. And suddenly I was 24/7, so scared to be experiencing the feelings that I was feeling. And I'm, as you all know, it's not just dizziness. The panic was there. I was also experiencing what we've all come to know as brain zaps, which I thought was, you know, I felt like my brain was slipping on a banana peel about twice a minute. And the sensation of someone pulling me to the right or laying down and, you know, not sleeping at all, feeling like I was upside down at like a 45-degree angle. So as you can see, and as you all can relate to, life as I knew it was gone. And I finally pursued a neurologist. And I was in this, prior to even the neurologist, I was like, this has got to have an answer. This has got to have a fix. Everything has a fix, right? And so I was starting to check off the boxes of all the different possibilities. Mostly physicians were leading towards like a delayed concussion type of thing. Still, nobody had a proper diagnosis for me. I got to a neurologist 4 months after these started. And he looked at me and said, I think you have cervicogenic vertigo. And I'm going to send you to get 12 sessions of neck PT, and you will start to feel a lot better. So he was kind of, again, connecting it to the bicycle accident. Something didn't repair properly there. So I went to my PT diligently, and she was the one that said, you're not getting better. She said, in fact, every time you come and see me, I think you're a little bit worse. I was gray. I was so scared in my skin. To give you an example, I remember one day my husband was still going to work every day. And the fear wasn't like, am I going to die? The fear was that I was going to fall over and just, you know, crack my head open or something. And so I packed my backpack one day with a bottle of water and a sandwich, and I walked the 10 blocks to the emergency room, not because I, you know, was going to check myself in, but because I was going to sit there all day in front of the emergency room in case I fell over. And then at least somebody would see me fall over instead of being fallen over in the house. And I, you know, that's just to give you an example of kind of the state that I was in. So I went to the PT, didn't get better. And that's when I decided, okay, Western medicine isn't helping me here. I'm gonna move in with my mom. My husband had a full-time job, was not able to take care of me, and I moved away for 7 months and tried as many alternatives as possible. And that's when I started to get into that cycle of hope and then despair and hope and despair. Every treatment had some like, like this is gonna be it. And then the weeks and months that followed of realizing that this was not going away. What happened for me, and this is my first lifeline, I don't know if any of you, I'm going to share my screen here. And this is a little surprise for you, Kevin. I was not filmmaking anymore. I'm sure you guys can figure that out. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally just trying to survive and get through every day and going to appointments. I picked up needle felting, and it was, anyone know what needle felting is? It became a lifeline for me because I wasn't moving. And I needed to distract my brain from all of this noise, all of these experiences. My hands needed to be busy. I needed to feel purpose, other than just going to doctor's visits. And I became obsessed. And I poked a needle into wool probably hundreds of thousands of times over a period of 2 years, barely leaving the house. And I'm going to share, this is, okay, bear with me while I figure out how to do this. Ta-da! Okay, can you guys see that?
Not yet, Kimberly.
Oh, there's the share button, hang on. Hang on here. It didn't share yet?
No.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
How's that?
Look at, that's it, you're in.
Okay, so this is what needle felting looks like. Balls of wool and these little barbed needles that you just poke obsessively into the needle until it forms shapes. And I didn't have a language for what was happening for me. I didn't know how to communicate what was happening to me. I still didn't have a diagnosis. People thought I was losing my mind. And I started to create these shapes that connected to what I was feeling. And this is all kind of unconscious, I was just like really trying to distract myself. But what came about from this is a whole series of hairless cats. And they were hairless cats. I don't know. I mean, have you ever seen one? They're super vulnerable looking. They don't have any fur. And they were my lifeline. They were a soft, comforting place for me to visualize what I was feeling. And this is the first one I made. And it really expressed the state of the cocoon that I was in, the fear, the constant state of fear, the retreat from the world that I was in for months, if not years. And in that period of time, of course, like I said, I looked totally normal. So there was this schism, this feeling that there were two of me. I had the one that was upright and the one that was cocooned. And both of these experiences were walking through the world. And I also sort of imagined this one that's kind of hovering over the cocooning one as a protector. Even though I didn't have an answer, I didn't know what was going on. I needed to visualize that somebody was tending to me. Somebody was watching over me. But as we all know, dizziness is like an itch that you cannot scratch. I mean, it is, you hear these stories of Buddhist monks and being able to meditate through, swarms of mosquitoes. It's like that. It's like this experience that never, ever, ever goes away. unless, you know, we have some incredible sedative that just knocks us out. So this was my cat that expressed the desire, the incessant desire for stillness and the relief that that would give me. And then, of course, occasionally, I'd wake up and I'd feel almost normal. We all have had those days where like, oh my gosh, what was it? Did I eat was it the broccoli I ate yesterday? Was it the 9 hours of sleep? Was it this, was the, you know, and you start going through the list because I feel good today. And there's hope again. And I hate that word, hope. I'm sorry to say, but that, I mean, hope for a cure was something that just became toxic to me. But at this point in time, I was experiencing these moments of feeling good. And then that would be followed with the need to cocoon again. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute there. How do did I stop? I didn't, did I? Oh gosh, Kevin, how do I get out of this? Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. So what I realized, and this is sort of the first phase of that journey, I needed to grieve the loss of who I used to be. And while I was in this fixing, there's got to be an answer, I was not really giving myself any permission to just feel the loss of who I once was. Fixing is like way too small a strategy to deal with the loss that we all deal with once our brains decide that, you know, stillness is not an option. And I went through a real deep mourning, and that was necessary for me to get to where I am today. At the time I was 40 years old and I felt like my life was over, literally. And my relationship with my husband was definitely on the rocks. My experience of myself as a filmmaker was completely over. I had cats, you know, I was felting cats and I was like, am I really gonna do this for the rest of my life? Like, seriously? So, this is where, if you want to make a little note, if you're taking notes, this is where I wanted to show a film called I Was, I Am. And you can watch the whole thing. I just sort of, you know, blocked it off from the beginning to 3 minutes and 44 seconds. These are some subjects that I've been working with that have all different types of chronic illnesses. And in I Was, I Am, they begin the video talking about who they used to be. And I think it's really important to kind of go back and just, you know, hold that, because it's a bummer and it's sad. And I think we need to go there. And in going there finally was something in me that could breathe around the experience, for lack of a better word. It's like I suddenly could hold this experience in a bigger container. And that's when I talk about it as my twin. My twin was this little number of cats here. One night, this was about 2.5 years into it, I was back with my husband again. We sold my house. We moved to the coast to get away from all the noises of the city, the dump trucks, you know, everything that was just causing so much anxiety. And we were living in a tiny little cottage on the Oregon coast. And we have big storms on the Oregon coast, like branches just like bashing into the windows. And I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping much for those first 2 years. I was just laying in bed, feeling the bed bounce up and down, listening to the branches bash up against the window. And I had this moment where I was like, okay, there's a huge storm out there, but somewhere there's blue sky above this storm. Like, that exists simultaneously while this crazy storm is happening. And I connected that to myself. Like, there's this crazy storm happening in my body. The bed won't stop moving. But if I can put my mind on that blue sky, then I can have two experiences at the same time. And those two experiences are this awful feeling, these awful sensations, and the stillness that's holding it all, if that makes any sense. And this is really important. I mean, this has been my path to kind of the beginning of a turning point for me. So if you guys have questions about it, we can go back into it, but it really was, I want to almost say it was like, instead of feeling my feelings, I was observing my feelings. And that was the first time in my life that I was able to not be 100% consumed by them. Maybe now I was 99%. And I'm not saying that like I just became enlightened in that moment at all. This really, what I'm saying, was an opportunity for me to create space for all the yucky, awful hairballs that I was experiencing 24/7. So this guy is a reminder, okay, we had this moment of blue sky, but guess what? The hairballs continue. The desire for this to go away, the desperation continues. And simultaneously, there's an awareness of stillness that's holding it all. And I can switch channels back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and sometimes even hold them at the same time. And I, without wanting to sound like, you know, I'm on a unicorn farm or anything, to me, this was love. This was my first real act of love for myself. This was me being able to go, I am grumpy. I am so mad at my life. I'm so mad at what's happening to me. And I'm still lovable in this. I love this guy. This guy, like, he sits next to our toilet now. And he's just such a reminder to me that we are lovable in our brokenness. And until I could let that be a part of me, I was just miserable. And this wasn't going away anytime soon. I finally had kind of realized that. So sort of, this became a muscle for me. I started to exercise this experience of awareness around the dizziness. And that helped me put my feet back on the ground in a way. Didn't make the symptoms go away, but it helped me say yes to this experience. And the fixing, there has to be an answer, was me saying no to who I am, really. And for me, I needed to stop saying no to who I am and start saying yes. So that's, as you can tell, I gave up on fixing. That was 2.5 years into this, and I just decided, you know what, this isn't helping me. I need to stop resisting this experience and just give this a go. Cancel the doctor's appointments, cancel everything for a while. And again, I'm not saying I'm all for cures. While I'm saying all of this, please know I am taking medication. I am doing treatments. But the priority of my life changed. I decided I needed to focus somewhere else. And of course, life isn't, a straight arrow. So I had moments where I'm like, there's a cure. I got to chase this one now. So much so that there was a period, I don't know if you've heard of this reality TV show, but it's called Chasing the Cure. And I heard about this. Basically, they get like people from all over the world with rare conditions, and then they get doctors to come together and they try to solve the problem. And I thought, this is great. Someone's going to figure out. I still didn't have a diagnosis, by the way, here. So I thought, this is good. I'm going to do this. And I went through this weird process of like producers interviewing me for hours on end, asking me about my story. And I remember hanging up after one of those calls and just bawling. I was so tired. I couldn't do it again. I couldn't go it was an abandonment of myself to go back into this path of chasing the cure. And at that point, it was like, okay, if I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life, I need to know how to do it. And I did not have any mentors, none. And you know, our culture, it's all about fixing. We want the heroic stories. We don't want the stories of the people sitting at the bottom of the mountain that don't get up. So this was sort of the birth of Unfixed, and Unfixed is a film production company that shares stories about people that are living with chronic conditions. It was the selfish beginning for me. I really needed to find people that were doing this. And so I put up some flyers around town and said, anybody got chronic illness, I'm gonna pick up a camera, and as wobbly as I am, I'm gonna start to record you and learn from you. And that, the first person, one of the first people that was referred to me as local from Portland, Oregon, went through the same naturopathic degree program that I did, and in his 6th year developed ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and very progressive ALS. So at the point he was diagnosed in 2018, when I got my first camera on him, he was already unable to speak, in a wheelchair, 41 years old. His life went from being, the dream of being a physician and caring for people to being completely dependent on human beings. And he has been a teacher for me. I mean, I've had so many teachers. Rupal is one of them, but he's the first. And I remember watching him and like, there's this light in this guy, and he's been stripped of everything, literally. And what he did was he needed to reframe his life. And for him, connection to his spirit was number one. And he believed that if he could connect to his spirit and that was his purpose in this life, then ALS was there to serve him in the highest way possible, because it was taking all of the distractions away. I mean, there was nothing left. And when I had that camera on him, actually had somebody ask me, he's like, was it hard to communicate with somebody who, was communicating with his eyeballs through an eye tracking device? And it was, sort of an AI robot type of conversation. And I was absolutely like, no. I mean, his eyes, his spirit was so connected to everybody in that room that we were all in tears. And so he was fulfilling his purpose, the purpose that he made for himself in this lifetime, was to connect with others beyond all conditions. And I'm so moved by his willingness to look at ALS as an opportunity to do just that. And he had to decide that. Early on, I also met a gentleman named Brian. You'll see these guys in the videos if you check in on those. Brian was a fashion photographer, traveled all over the world, amazing guy, super funny, probably had a bunch of ladies. And in his late 30s, he had a crazy stroke and left him completely disabled. Also, he double vision, so he was unable to, see the world in the way he could see. He's in a wheelchair. He's not able to use his hands. And Brian, I'm fast forwarding through their journeys. It's not like they had this moment right away. But what I learned from Brian was also similar to Dylan, where he said, okay, you know what? That career's over. It was a really busy lifestyle. Now I get to sit home and listen to the birds and watch my smelly dog walk around the house. And I'm kind of chill and relaxed now. I don't have to travel all over the place. And that was kind of a crazy lifestyle. But I'm also able to pick up a camera and share with the world how I see now, which is double. And I've quoted him, I'll quote him. He said, it's like living inside of a Picasso painting. So he shoots with a Holga, just an old plastic camera, and messes with the film and everything. And it's messed up. And he's like, I never would have been able to done that before. This is not, I was a silly fashion photographer shooting for Nordstrom. And so again, like Dylan, he reframed this experience of like, wow, here's an opportunity to see the world in a whole different way. The last one I want to share, again, these people, there's so many of them, but Elizabeth has really progressive MS. She was an attorney. When she stopped being able to use her voice, she became an artist. When she stopped being able to use her hands, she became a writer. She's in her 60s now and has actually said that she's appreciated the slow progression of MS because she's so curious about watching the deterioration of her body. And it's informed her and her creativity and her willingness and desire to be an advocate for others. And she said, sometimes she's had friends that have had really progressive cancer, and it's fast and dirty. And she said, MS is slow and dirty. And she sees it as a friend, she calls it her buddy. She said, my buddy is like a peacock, this beautiful peacock that sits on my shoulder. And sometimes the peacock poops on me. And sometimes the peacock is showy and beautiful. But it's always there. And she is somebody who is not like a Pollyanna kind of Susie Sunshine, like I love my MS all the time, but she, in order to survive the deterioration of her body, she needed to look at this in a new way. So that's, if you want to, there's another video here I wanted to share with you guys. It's called Lifelines, and you'll see all these guys talk, and others as well. Lifelines is, you can watch the whole thing, but again, I have like from the beginning to 3 minutes and 47 seconds. And you can kind of hear some of these people
Kimberly,
talk.
just a second. Can I suggest just try that one video for 3 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm warning to everyone watching, it may not play properly and we may not be able to hear the sound, but just for 3 minutes, bear with it. And let's see what happens, and then unshare after 3 minutes, and we'll see. Because some of these videos, they're so great.
I would love to. Yeah, I would love that too.
Yeah, just try it for 3 minutes, and we'll let you know afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Hang on.
And whilst Kimberly's trying to set that up, fingers crossed it'll work. Just please don't forget to put any questions in the chat box. It would be great if you've got questions for her to ask when she's finished her presentation. Thank you.
So what do you do when you're lost at sea and everything you've tried isn't working?
When narcolepsy gets to the point where I just feel completely overwhelmed and like I can't get any air.
I was a really avid guitar player, but when I started being able to get motion back, or when I was in trying to learn fine motor skills, I realized that I couldn't play guitar anymore. I didn't have strength in my left hand or the coordination of playing chords.
I've been a competitive rower or cyclist or things like that for a long time. So I think I've derived a lot of my identity as like the fit athletic guy, So when this sort of had this identity already rolled into this, and then at first when I got Parkinson's, I didn't know what to do. At the beginning I was like, well, there goes the majority of my identity. However, then this new opportunity presented itself to go even further into this obsession almost, So
it was devastating to not be able to practice medicine as I planned after almost 7 years of medical school. Running up there with the fear of mortality as as I was initially adjusting to a terminal illness diagnosis of near total disability, was my perceived loss of the ability to be of service.
Detach and we start to remove the things from our lives that are becoming too much for us to cope with. We don't want to feel like a burden, so we start letting go of that attachment, that community, that connectiveness, and in doing so, we keep sliding down the scale into the pit. And it is a bit like a mud pit to the point where you're sliding and you do need someone to give you a helping hand up.
So how do I deal with that? How do I get past this pain, this way of thinking, so I can move on with my life, find a better space, find a better way?
It looks different daily for me. First and foremost, I think I turn to what I would call some sort of prayer. I think that there is something really spiritual about voicing out loud the things that are weighing you down and driving you crazy and feel like they're suffocating you.
The moment that is the most powerful is the point of surrender, the point where you've been battling so hard to stop the feelings, to stop the pain, to stop the emotional barrage of stuff just hitting you constantly, and you just surrender to it. And in that moment, you create yourself a little bubble where you can breathe a little bit, and you just relax. You relax into it a little bit, instead of trying to fight it off, and instead of trying to understand or try and fix it, you just stop.
When I have felt like I am lost at sea, or I have hit my rock bottom and I'm sending out an SOS call, my lifeline has to be me.
I choose to connect with something greater than myself that helps me cope.
How was that? Did it come through?
Yeah, sound, yeah, good.
Yeah,
It's just slightly slow frame rate, so it's all a little bit still images rather than flip, but it was really good, Kimberly. We
Okay.
got the content, so try another video as you go along. That's really good.
Okay, well, we can go back and when it feels right, I'll good. That's good to know.
Cool. Thank you.
So these guys, it started with 20 people, and as you could see, all over the world, who had a whole variety of different conditions, terminal and ongoing. And every month I just posed a question to them. And they've been with me now for almost 22 months, where they've been turning their smartphones towards themselves and answering these questions and sending me 5-minute, sometimes 14-minute videos. But it's vulnerable and it's real. And I've said this before, it's almost like, to me, it's like been like Christmas every time I get another video, because I'm learning so much from these people. I didn't know how to do this, and I don't think any one of them would have said they've known how to do this. And I think in this magical work called being a documentarian, I'm holding space for them to realize that they do have some answers in them, and they're all unique. And that's kind of been the beauty of like letting them answer these questions for themselves in the privacy of their own homes. They get to really dig in, and they don't get to hear everybody else's until the video's done. And they get to kind of come up for air a little bit and realize, oh, maybe I do have a lifeline, or maybe this is what I have been doing and this has been working. Like the young woman with narcolepsy, for her, she talks about prayer. We have some others that also talk about prayer, and many of us aren't religious. And I, asked her to kind of explain what is prayer to her. And for her, it's been a place to get quiet. And for us with balance disorders and dizziness, having stillness and quiet is essential. However, we find that we have a young woman, I love how she says this. She has a vestibular disorder and she's in the Life Rebalanced Chronicles. She said, I needed to find inner stillness because my world is always moving. And I think for any of us, that is the key. And how you do that is unique to you. But that inner stillness for me, it was that blue sky moment of like, I have an escape finally. I have not an escape as in I get away from these feelings, but I have something that my brain can go to give me some peace. And so again, so some, that's prayer, and that is a form of spirituality or God or religion. For some, like Stephanie talked about, that point of surrender was really important to her, where everything just stops. And in that, there's this sort of bubble, she said, that kind of forms around you. And I want to equate that bubble again back to my unicorn farm of its love, of giving ourselves that to bear witness to ourselves. One of the kindest things, I grew up with this quote, one of the kindest things we can give one another is rapt attention for each other's existence. And what if we do that for ourselves? You know, I mean, that just like makes me tear up, because how often do we give ourselves rapt attention to our existence? Not to what we can be, but to who we are now. And it sucks. I mean, when the who we are now hurts and we want to get away from it, and it's just awful and never ending. But, you know, being kind to that and to that aching part of ourselves is a form of healing. I will share the screen again for a second, because there is we'll go back to the cats. I created this guy. This was my version of that finding a way to love myself in this, finding a way to surrender and stop and create this bubble around myself to nurture the hurting parts that wanted this so badly to go away, the nurturing of that little self that just is never going to be okay with this, is never going to accept this. But there's also the big mama cat that's there to just kind of go, you know, hey, we're here, I'm here with you. And I love these guys. They're right next to me right here at the desk, and it's a daily reminder. This isn't something that we just kind of have an aha moment and go, oh, cool, you know, I get it. It's a daily reminder to be kind to those aching, frustrated parts. So there, going back to some of the lifelines, we also, humor is a great one. We had somebody talk about humor as being such a huge part of actually changing her physiology. When she was, she has trigeminal neuralgia. And when she was pregnant, it got really bad, and she started tuning into comedy channels and literally changing the physiology of her body, but through laughter. Major lifeline for her. An inner coach for some. We have, especially this gentleman who was in the military. He's like, my lifeline is my inner coach, and my inner coach says, get off your ass and get out of bed. He talks about kind of like feeling sort of the pity party and he stayed in bed for 2 years just eating ice cream, and just he needs that inner coach to say, get out there, people need you. And then that leads me to the service. A lot, crazy number of people have found their lifeline through service, and that giving them a sense of purpose. And to me, personally, that has without me trying, you know, of course we grew up with like, you should serve and be kind to the world, you know, and I didn't get that. I didn't know what that was. But now, without even trying, I have found that waking up in the morning and having these people to tend to when their videos show up in my Dropbox, and how do I tell these stories and how do I give them voice and justice, this on my worst days now, and I still have awful days. I hate looking at the computer screen. I hate it, but I don't know, something else is like taking me for the ride now, because I just love it. I love every single one of you. I'm like, maybe I feel like love for the first time in my life. And I just, the vulnerability and the willingness and the desire to be heard, because we all feel so alone and misunderstood. So purpose, that is my purpose. And that has been incredible. We have a gentleman in the Life Rebalanced Chronicles. His name is Steve. He has Meniere's disease. And
Kimberly, before you carry on talking about Steve, just explain what the Chronicles are and how that actually came about a little bit briefly.
Yeah, so Life Rebalanced Chronicles, similar to the original 20 Unfixed community that you saw in that previous video, it became a little bit of a model for other episodes. And so VeDA came to me and said, we want to move people with these stories, you know, these academic articles and we need something to really evoke emotion and get people to understand what we're all living through. And so they saw the Unfixed videos and said, let's try this. Let's cast 9 people from all over the world with different conditions and do something similar, where once a month we ask them a question, they turn the cell phones on themselves, send them back, and we edit them into 6 cohesive episodes. So Rupal is one of our cast members, and and she's been amazing. I just love her. I love everything that she has to say. And all of them, I mean, I can't wait for you guys to hear all of them, because I've learned so much from them. Steve,
I wonder if we could see perhaps a little clip, if we could try another video, Kimberly.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Let me get out of this other one here. Oopsies.
And you were mentioning Steve, who is a bit of an inspiration, actually.
Steve, see if I can find this here. Steve has Meniere's disease and was basically on his couch for 8 years and just feeling pretty darn miserable about everything, and didn't have any focus for his life. He lost his job, really bad vertigo attacks. And he one day just decided, I need to do something really hard on myself to just shake myself out of this 8-year-long hell. And he decided he was going to bike across the country and raise awareness for Meniere's disease. And he's like, I can't even walk across the street. I can barely ride a bike, but I'm going to get on a bike and I'm going to raise awareness. And he has become an advocate. I mean, huge, just so in love with people. And he's found all these people along the way on his bike ride that have Meniere's disease that root him on. And he's decided he's going to do it again now. He's leaving September 1st to go from Colorado to Alcatraz in San Francisco. So another 1,400 miles or something. Bikes about 100 miles a day. And he wrote a book about this. It's self-published on Amazon. It's called On the Vertigo. And he's hilarious. I laughed, I cried. I mean, this book is, you know, a beautiful tribute to somebody who's not afraid to say it like it is. It's dirty. The book is dirty, and in all the right ways.
And hopefully you'll see him on the video, if we could try that.
Yeah. So let me share. I'll share the body rebalanced, since that's is that, yeah. Hang on here. I'm so bad at this.
It's a massive learning curve, I think, for all of us.
Oh, goodness. Hang on.
My heart started racing really fast. It was beating extremely fast. I reached out for my wife and I said, I don't know what kind of brownies we bought from that grocery store, but I think this was where spiked with something. I felt like I was on drugs.
You have no idea what's going on.
I would look at myself and I'd be like, something's wrong. I was so frustrated with being dizzy every day.
Everything around me was so blurry.
I had bouncing vision.
I had double vision.
Especially it's freaky when you look in the mirror and you just see yourself swaying back and forth and you know that you're not moving.
You, the world, everything that I'm looking at is filtered through the side right now.
I have had very severe light sensitivity.
I will look at my phone screen and it will be extremely bright.
And a horrible hyperacusis, which is sensitivity to any sound.
My left ear is deaf and my right ear hears in mono. The only thing I hear is loud, white noises.
And I had horrible tinnitus.
Like a washing machine. Everything is just...
Opening a cabinet to get a spoon, that would be so debilitating.
And I said, to be honest, doctor, this might sound crazy.
My head feels like it's half full of water and it swishes back and forth.
I constantly 24/7 feel a sense of rocking front to back, swaying side to side. That's kind of how it feels to have vertigo. Like sometimes you're sitting still, but you feel like you're in motion. Bobbing up and down, like I was in a fun house.
I feel like I live in a bouncy house.
If I was on cement and then I walked into the grass, it felt different. It felt like I was going into quicksand as soon as I went on the grass.
The lack of balance is a real thing.
I lost my sense of balance. So I'm constantly trying to grip something.
So sitting up against a wall or gripping onto my chair and just feeling like I need this sensation to stop, because when you're in a fun house, like you can get off, but with the vestibular disorder, there's no off button.
So that's the first part of the Body Rebalanced. There's more. Then they kind of get into the, like what that first section is just, this is what we feel, right? I know you can all relate to that. And so helpful for you guys to have to share with people and doctors when they're like, you look normal. What are you feeling? They kind of do a great job at expressing all the intricacies of what that is. And then they go into what that did to them, how that changed their lives. And we always end each video with how coping, how did we cope with that? And what are the ways that they can still live well despite the experiences that they're having. So that video is out. It's called Body Rebalanced, but then we go into Mind Rebalanced. The mind is all about anxiety and brain fog and our thought patterns. And then we talk about Spirit, which is one of my favorite ones. How this broke our spirits down, and ways that we can pull ourselves out of the dark. Relationships is another video, pretty meaty stuff, especially to hear them all talk about like what has been said to them over the years of feeling so misunderstood. And so anyway, there's 6 episodes. And they're all coming out once a week right now. And I think that they've just done such a fantastic job. And I'm like I've said, I've learned so much from them. And to me, what it's really become clear is that this whole process is learning how to have a community around us. I was so alone in this. I had no idea that my little idea to put up flyers and create do a documentary that hasn't happened because of COVID. It's turned into a docu-series and then mini-series. what it is it's creating community in a place where I was by myself with my husband in the other room with a ball of wool and needles for years and years, and thought that was the end. And I still am pretty isolated. When I do go out into the world, I'm a little bit shocked sometimes as to how hard it still is. It's hard to communicate for long periods of time with people. I find myself wanting to back up against the wall, and so I've had to find a way that works for me and not be alone in it. And this has been a way that I don't feel alone anymore. Steve says, he said it really well in one of the videos. He said, when you have a chronic illness, your friends become strangers and strangers become friends. And I don't know all of you, but I love looking at your faces right now. And I'm like, oh, I have new friends. And, you know, I think there's this story that I love sharing. Andrew Solomon is an author. He wrote a book called Far from the Tree. And it's about, he did this extensive research on all the crazy things that can happen to children when they're born, diseases and, you know, autism, and some of them becoming murderers, and just like they fell far from the tree. And the parents are like, what happened? And during this period while he was writing it, he and his partner decided they wanted to adopt. And his friends were like, are you crazy? Like you're basically writing a book about all the things that can go wrong in the human body, and you're going to go adopt a child now. And he said this in a TED Talk. He said, I'm not writing a book about all the things that can go wrong with the human body. I'm writing a book about the love that is possible when things do go wrong. And I like, that's it. That's it. There is, I'm coming back to love again, but there is, love is possible when all this stuff goes wrong. And I've discovered that through my camera and through this work. And all of you have some place in your lives that can also find that. And it's unique though, you know, it takes a little digging and a little determination to find out, you know, how you can save love from this, because everything else is going to burn down. But to me, I believe that love persists.
Kimberly, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it. It's already 10 after, so.
Excellent.
And I know hopefully we've got people that have got questions for you as well, and have enjoyed hearing from you today. And hopefully people will go away and have a look at some of those videos, because they are extremely powerful, not only in terms of the visuals, but there are podcasts as well, which are equally powerful, that you can go away and listen to on YouTube. As Kevin said earlier, I think we'll send out those links as and when we can. Or Kimberly, if you've got a moment, you know, and you don't mind popping them in the chat box, then please do that. And remember that you can save messages, you can save the chat. There are 3 little dots when you look at your chat screen to the right of that, and there is a little, if you click on the 3 dots, there is a save chat button. So that hopefully will be of use to you if you want to have a look at Kimberly's stuff, but hopefully we'll send those out anyway. I'm really keen to get some questions in. So Kelly's been monitoring all our questions on the chat box. And if you don't want to type in your question, but you've got a question, there is also a reactions button on your Zoom screen, hopefully, if you're using a laptop. If you click that, there'll be a raise hands thing. So do that. Or if you can't do that, just stick your hand up and I'll try and come to you. We'll try and come to you as we can. So Kelly, shall we kick off with some questions?
Yeah, let's go for it. Why not? So we've got a couple of questions from Polly, first of all. So these are for Kimberly. First of all, she would like to know, what would you say to the hospitals who have said that they won't treat, now I'm not very good at pronouncing it, but I think it's the condition that you said that you've been diagnosed with, the MDDS. And yeah, so she wants to know about that.
What would I say to the hospitals?
Yeah, that won't treat it because it might spontaneously remit.
You know, That's a really good question. I tend to avoid the places that I know are not going to recognize me. So I have not been back to an emergency room since I've had the proper diagnosis. I go to the physicians and the neurologists that do recognize it. And I ignore. I just was at an ENT a couple months ago, a new one, and she said, oh, you don't have MDDS, that's impossible because you weren't on a boat. And I said, see you later, not coming back to you. My neurologist is a lot more specialized than you, and he's the one that diagnosed me. So I feel like I don't have a lot of patience, and they're doing the best they can, but I don't want to put myself through that anymore. So I don't want to put up that fight. Find the good ones.
Yeah, definitely. And have you had any experiences where people have said to you that MDDS doesn't exist and instead it might be triple PD?
Yes, I have. My PT has said that. The ENT that I just saw said that. And to me, it's like, okay, whatever, we can call it PPPD. We get so caught up in the names, and that's where I kind of, that first 2 years where I didn't even have a diagnosis, it's like, okay, the only thing for me that because I've brought this back to my neurologist and said, well, why isn't it PPPD? And he said, because when you get in a car, you feel amazing. And he said, passive motion, the same reason why standing for me, the more movement I have, the better I feel. And I know that even people in our mini series that have PPPD, they don't feel better when they're in a lot of movement. A lot of the vestibular exercises that my vestibular therapist did for me made me feel better, and they were supposed to trigger me and make me feel worse. So I have something, and there's probably a cervicogenic component for me too, that is, making the more proprioception I have, the better I feel. So there might be something between here and here that's not getting as many signals as it should. Yeah, so yes, I have had that.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question we have got is from Debbie, and she's asked you, what drugs have helped you, and have you ever undertaken any exercises to help? So, for example, eye movement.
Drugs, I am on them now, and I'm experimenting probably this fall with a new one, and I can keep you guys updated on that one. But right now, I am on, not regularly, but as needed, which usually is once or twice a week, hydroxyzine. And hydroxyzine is an old school antihistamine, and it has an off-label indication for anxiety. And it also blocks serotonin uptake. So it does a lot of what other people have had success with SSRIs. And for me, it knocks me out at night. So I'm finally sleeping again. It cuts through the anxiety, and it lasts. Like for me, if I take one, for 3 days, I kind of feel like chill, and it doesn't make me drowsy during the day. So I take hydroxyzine. I think Atarax is the regular name. I also have an autoimmune thyroid disorder that I was diagnosed with when I was 20. And I definitely know that the thyroid issue exacerbates the dizziness. And we keep upping my dose when my dizziness goes up. And so I'm on levothyroxine. My thyroid was hyper for many, many years. It was overactive. And just prior to the dizziness starting, it flipped and I became hypothyroid. So I'm absolutely sure that the thyroid is a component of this. So I'm on levothyroxine and low dose naltrexone, which is sometimes used as an alternative to people with autoimmune diseases to help decrease that inflammation. So those are the 3 meds that I take pretty regularly, those 2 every day, and then the 1 maybe twice a week. Exercises, I haven't had any specific, like I said, when I go to a vestibular physical therapist, the two that I've gone to, they always go back to my neck. They try exercises with me, eye things, movement things, and they're like, this isn't triggering you. We don't have a baseline for you here. So they end up going and doing neck exercises and neck strengthening things and joint mobilization things. So I've never had any success with the classic vestibular exercises.
Kimberly, can I also ask you just to share some of the things that you actually use? Because I know there's a couple of sort of items that you actually use to help you with your condition, one of which you're actually standing on.
Yeah, I'll pick it up. This is just like a 3-inch foam pad. And like even now, as I took that away from my feet, I'm like, okay, I'm much more dizzy now. It's like my ankles are constantly going like this on it. And my brain, when it has that extra movement, same like walking on gravel is a lot easier than walking on pavement. Walking on grass squishy shoes help me. Hardwood floors and barefoot is awful, like so scary for me. I hate bare feet on hardwood floors. So that's one thing that I do. I also have the Cephaly device. So this lovely thing, I use that twice a day. When it's on me.
Explain that. Show it to us again with the camera.
It's this tiny little, can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it? Okay. It's an electrode. So you put this sticky thing on your forehead and then attach it there, and it creates an electrical pulse that goes to your trigeminal nerve. And apparently a lot of people that have vestibular migraines or classic migraines, that when the trigeminal nerve is involved, this pulsing can relax it. And when it relaxes, it decreases the duration and the strength of those migraines. For me, I'm certain that it helps when it's on. So I sometimes kind of OD on it, and I'll go for hours with it on. And I've asked my neurologist if it's okay, and he said it is. But it's, again, I think it's like something for my brain to chew on, and it's a distraction. As soon as I take it off, I'm kind of not just back to my old self. I'm in the experimental stage with it as to whether it's actually long-term helping me, or if it's just something that when it's on, it's awesome. I definitely feel less dizzy. What else?
We've got two Deborahs, Kelly, and I'm not sure which one has asked two separate questions. Which is the Deborah that's asked the question about communicating your condition? Which one is it? Deborah, do you want to ask your question directly?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, firstly, about communicating your condition to other people. What's the best way of doing that? Because people just think you look normal and they don't really understand and don't really accept that you feel ill. And so how do you go about doing that? How do you go about communicating that with people that you're working with and similar family members, etc.? And then the other thing is, what type of migraines do you have? Do you have a diagnosis for them?
Start with the migraine one, because that's an easy one. It's the vestibular migraine diagnosis is what my neurologist gave me. I never had a headache prior to this. I don't have migraines. So that was surprising to me. But so there's that. But as far as communicating with people, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. It's hard. I create videos to tell people. I send them there. In person, early on, when I was really struggling with this and still going on jobs, I was such a mess that people could see it in my eyes that I was, like, I have to go. But my technique has been, sorry to say, but to withdraw and to remove myself from those relationships. If I now have people that are still questioning this, and I've shared the videos and I've told them what I'm going through, I don't have a lot of patience for it. I want to believe that there is some opening there, but there's so much education for people that they have to have. And I do believe that these videos are at least 11 minutes. They'll get to see that it's not just you. They might, in fact, we had someone from Switzerland just comment on that first video, the Life Rebalanced video. And he said his girlfriend watched it with him. And afterwards she turned to him and said, I heard your voice in all of these people's voices. She's like, I heard you say those things. And she wanted to watch it again. She was like, okay, it's over. Let's watch it again, because it was so helpful for her to see. I don't know, when we're in these relationships, we sometimes think, oh, you know, maybe it's just them, or they're having a, you know, weird episode. But when we hear it from all these people, it's harder to delegitimize. So I'm sorry, that's a terrible answer. I'm not trying to plug my videos.
but they are definitely worth watching. So, you know, it's worth a good plug, I think. Deborah, thank you for your question.
Definitely.
Kelly, I know, Kelly, we've got loads of other questions that we'd like to sort of get through quickly, if possible.
Can I, Kelly, just before you go in there, Deborah, to answer yours about how do we deal with people that don't understand. Ironically and bizarrely, Kimberly, you're a great example today. You're so eloquent. You talk so well. No one in a million years would ever believe you have any sort of health condition. You know, people expect us to be in sackcloth and ashes and look strange. And what I've found with, I have many ears and can only hear out of one ear. And over the years, I've just got braver and braver to say, for example, I still go to many business meetings. I now actively say, as people sit down around a table, I need to sit here so I can hear you. And make no apology for it, just say I've got a hearing issue. And the same when I used to be getting the bad dizzy attacks, I would just outwardly say, I know you can't tell, but I am currently feeling really unstable. And I just need you to know that, because you might think I look slightly distracted at some time. And I think my message to everyone is try and be a little braver and bolder with people, not to an extent where you're ever going to appear aggressive or offend people, but there is no need to apologize for your condition. And remember, here's the irony, Deborah, the more you don't talk about it, no one's ever going to know, because when they look at you, they go, well, you're perfectly normal. And neither am I saying we walk around with t-shirts on going, hey, I'm dizzy, pleased to meet you. But you know what I mean? It's finding the appropriate level with people who you know are clueless or have forgotten that you've got this thing. And it's kind of appropriately saying, without any excuses, apology or embarrassment, this is what's going on. And I say, Kimberly, what do we do? Because you as a speaker, you're just so brilliant at speaking. No one would ever know you're standing on a foam pad and have the problem you have. And ironically, I have to mention, for many people with other balance conditions, standing on a foam pad's one of the worst things you could ever do.
Yeah.
But that, exactly. Look, sorry to interrupt, back to you, Kelly, but I just wanted to say, Deborah, just don't hesitate to tell people, but do it in that positive way. Don't say, I'm telling you because I want sympathy, or I'm telling you because you should know better. You are communicating just so they understand. And I say, for me, with my deafness and meetings, it's really easy. I go, I just need to sit here or I'm not going to hear you. And another thing, by the way, and I've got quite good at this, is in noisy restaurants where a lot of places have a habit of playing really loud music that nobody's listening to. And when you've got partial hearing, it's impossible to pick out conversation. And like you, Kimberly, with noise sensitivity, if the place isn't too crowded and you don't believe many people are even listening to that music, I've found it's really easy to go and talk to the staff quite politely, say, look, I don't think anyone's listening. Any chance we can turn that right down because I've got a hearing problem? I've not once had a bad response to that. So just, you know, be brave, do what you can. Right, I'm shutting up, Kelly. Back to you.
That's fine. Just finding my place again because the chat's going all over the place. It's fabulous. I love it. Okay, so I've got another question for Kimberly. The question we've got is, does passive movement help immediately, or does it take some time of passive movement for a gradual improvement? And also, does passive movement have a long-term effect, or do things get worse when becoming stationary?
It's instant. The relief is so crazy. I mean, as soon as, it doesn't have to be like 60 miles an hour in the car. It can be a rolling stop at a stoplight. As soon as the car is moving, I feel better. Not slightly better, but better. But as soon as the car stops, I have a period where it's worse. So I have to kind of get my bearings for, like, walking across the parking lot usually to the grocery store is the place where my husband knows to grab my hand. And then now it subsides. Before, I do remember it would last for a couple of days. I would put literally like sandbags on my body after getting off of a plane. Or after a car trip, I'd have to like have my husband lay his body on me. Just gravity was gone for a while. So motion makes it better. And then it also makes it worse. But I've gotten better at that. Usually the recovery is about 10 minutes unless I'm having just a really bad day. But yes, I'm wondering if that person that asked has the same experience. You don't have to answer.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Kimberly. I think that is all the questions I've seen in the chat. Apologies if I've missed anyone, but if you've got a hands up or anything, I think Rupal might be coming to you shortly. Because I can't see that, unfortunately, at the minute.
I believe, yeah, there's someone who I can't see, just a number ending in Debbie. I'll come to you very shortly, Debbie Lou. I know that you've got a question, but there is someone with a telephone number, I think, ending in 227. Is that Polly? Polly, did you want to ask your question or comment very briefly and quickly to Kimberly, please?
Oh, no, hello. So yes, it is Polly, thank you. No, Kimberly, thank you, that was great. You're now one of my team. That means I can say I have NDS, but it does not have me. Thank you very much, and I absolutely love your work. I love Rachel to pieces. She's been a superstar to me. We have a really big problem with PPPD in the UK, with eminent people saying that nobody has NDS. I mean, simply denying the existence of it. And they're a very, very powerful lobby, and I don't know what to do about them, but we are going to host a roundtable discussion about it. And if you did want to be involved, that would be great. I run the Action for Multi-Department Syndrome UK page, and I'll be posting about it there. So if you wanted to get involved, and if you know any patients who have PPPD and they want to get involved, that would be great too. And just a very quick heads up, screen work is not my friend. Vista mesh glasses, however, are my friends. My optician let me borrow a pair, and they sort of take out some of the input that's going into our eyes from the screens, and they've made a huge difference for me. So if you can find an optician that will lend you a pair, so you don't have to spend money before you know whether something works or not. I think that's a common theme for all of us. You know, we think, oh yeah, this'll fix me. They've really made a difference to me. So that's my offer there. And I don't work for Vista Mesh, I should just say. Thank you very much.
Polly, do you want to put that in the chat if possible as well? Just
what about the Vista Mesh?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I have.
Oh, great. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to check those out.
Can we go to Debbie Lou? Debbie,
have
you got a question?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much a question. It was more for Deborah when saying how did she talk to professionals to get her point across, because I've gone many years with this, and the saying going from one professional to the other, and they kept saying PPV. But I did see one neurologist, and at the end, I mean, he was trying to trip me up, you know, like, well, what is it? Are you dizzy standing up or sitting? And trying to tell him both and standing my ground. And at the end, I just said to him, Deborah, this is not good enough from you professionals to just pass me from one to the other. And it seemed then he was better. You know, he answered my emails. He's given me, I had a lumbar puncture. He's actively trying to find something. So I'd say just really stand your ground and just tell them you do need help, because the lumbar puncture did turn up with a problem. You know, so now they're looking at that with an autoimmune. But I feel that would not have been done if I hadn't kept pushing them and not just walking away. So good luck, everybody. This fantastic group. Just want to say, every professional I talked to ask if there was a support group, not one of them knew of any. Yeah, so I'm going to write and tell them about this group.
Thank
you. Thank you.
for that, Debbie.
Debbie, brilliant. And everyone out there, and anyone who gets to watch the video later, please put awareness out there that groups like ours exist. It is a problem. We looked at Google Ads, and there's no point doing Google Ads because nobody ever searches for a balanced support group. So it is a problem, but slowly and surely we're going to build that awareness.
And I think, you know, even with social media and stuff, let's, you know, keep hashtags going. I think people look for stuff with hashtags. If you are used to social media, hashtags with vestibular kind of conditions and whatever, which is what I tend to do, kind of seems to work. And Deborah, can I just go back to your sort of comment, just, you know, saying it's colleagues at work and some family that you have issues with. It was really interesting, but when I sort of had my second bout of my condition, where I was off work for however long and since lost my full-time job, somebody suggested to me that I write a blog, so I started to write a blog because I thought, oh, this is going to sound really, you know, vain, and who wants to hear about what I've got, you know, what's happening to me? Nobody really cares. But I did it anyway, and it was just really interesting because the very first post, within the first 3 hours of posting this blog, I actually got a message from a lady who said exactly what you're saying, and said, I've got this condition, I don't know what to do, my family don't believe me, and I don't know how to explain to them because I look okay, but I feel like rubbish. I feel awful, and I can't get people to explain how I feel. And she said, you know what, I'm going to use this blog to show my family, and I'm going to share it with people. And she came back to me a couple of weeks later and said it made the world of a difference. So quite often it's about sharing those stories that other people have gone through, you know, things that like Kimberly's producing, and sharing those stories, whether they're written or visual, can really make a difference, and go, look, this is exactly how I feel. I hope that helps in some shape or form. Have we got any more questions for Kimberly before we kind of wrap up? I know we've got a few other bits and bobs to do, but I think Nicola's got a question. Nicola, go for it quickly.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. Kimberly, how do you feel when you're on a boat?
You know, I've been on a boat, let's see, it was 2 years ago on a family reunion type of thing, and I thought, I'm just going to do this. Fine on the boat. It was kind of a choppy day. It was like, oh, this is how I feel. Recovering was harder. When I got off, the floor was dropping out quite a bit for a while. But on the boat, it was, you know, we were tugging kids behind water skiing and stuff like that. So it was sort of a speedy, not a gentle ride. I don't think I've been on a raft. I've often thought that just a gentle, you know, rocking back and forth on a raft might be very therapeutic, but same as the car, it goes away and then it comes back.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Kimberly before we move on? Okay, Mary's iPad. Mary's iPad's got a hand up. Go for it, Mary. You're still on mute, Mary.
Unmute,
If you
Mary.
don't mind
Unmute.
unmuting yourself, that'd be great.
I'm a person who overrides things. So people don't really know what's wrong with me because I just carry on, and I do override my condition. I mean, I've done all sorts of things and I just override it by thinking, well, this is funny. You know, I've slid down this slippery slope and I've broken an arm, and is that just my coping strategy?
I think that's an excellent coping strategy. I think that once we can get past the fear of the experience, that for me, that was the most debilitating, because then you get all the other symptoms that come along with it. For me, my symptoms have gone down. They are better most days, but I am able to, like you say, I think override is actually a really good coping mechanism, just to go, this is me, this is my experience. And you know, whether we need to play games with ourselves and pretend we're on a boat, or we're, you know, dancing with, you know, some angel or whatever, I think, and having a sense of humor about it, I think is a really brilliant way to deal with this.
Well, do you drive?
Mm-hmm. I love driving.
Yes, well, I love driving, but I've stopped driving because, you know, people said that you can't drive. And I said, well, I can. But I think because people keep telling me I can't, I've stopped driving.
Huh. And they're saying you can't because they think it's dangerous?
Because they know I've got a condition.
I think if you feel okay in the car and it makes you feel good.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I love driving. I would drive all day if I could. I would do my work in the car.
Okay, well, it's more that I feel I seem a bit different to a lot of people who have these different conditions, because mine's been diagnosed as triple PD. And I override a lot of the experiences. I mean, I'm falling over all the time. I just get up and carry on. Do you know what I mean? It's a sort of, I've learned how to fall without breaking arms and legs.
That's brilliant.
You'll definitely have to teach us that, Ella. Thank you so much. We'll have a session with you in the future, I think. Kelly, look, I'm really conscious of the time, and I know that people have got things to do this evening, but I really want to try and get everybody in. So, Kelly, I think there is someone else on the screen that has got a question as well.
I have no idea if I'm honest.
Sandy, I believe Sandy's got a question. Sally, go for your question.
I've seen on our support group, I get news feeds of people saying they have trouble with the vaccine, and my ENT doctor, some of his patients with vestibular disorder are also getting very sick from the vaccine. And I don't mean just the day having flu symptoms, I mean like for weeks or months. Is anybody else having trouble with the vaccine? Because I'm deathly afraid of getting it.
Kimberly, do you want to? I mean, have you had your vaccine? Is that something that
I did get my vaccine, and I was deathly afraid of it. Also because I have this autoimmune condition. I thought, I'm those 1%er. I have that immune system that's like, hey, weird. Let me do something stranger with this. I was scared. And so scared that I actually called my doctor on my way to the clinic and just broke down and cried in the car and said, I don't know if I can do this. And she said, you know, she didn't say, go do it. She just gave me some time to cry. And when I got it, I felt, and I just wanted to be one of the yes people. That was the main reason why I did it. I said, I just want to be yes instead of no. And I did it. And I felt such a relief. And I have been absolutely fine. No elevation of symptoms. So that's my experience. I'm not dismissing that other people are having this at all, but mine, with an autoimmune condition, I haven't had anything.
Anyone else very briefly to want to answer that question for Sandy?
Rupal, if I can just add to that, on the UK side, you've got people such as Professor Peter Ray, who's been actively looking out for any signs that there was any adverse response to vaccines with his patients, and there's absolutely nothing at the moment. That's anecdotally, but there's been no news of an adverse reaction for general balance conditions, which is obviously really good.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Sandy, who is one of our members in New Jersey. So thank you for that question, and thank you for all the comments as well. I know there's lots of you messaging on the screen. I'm not sure if there are any questions, but thank you for your input.
With questions.
Go for it, Kelly.
No, I think
we're done. I think we're done.
Sorry, guys, I've got one last question to put to Kimberly. And I've got to ask this, Kimberly. It's really not about specifically your condition. It's of all the people I've met in my journey with balance, I think you're the only one I've met who, through what you've done past as a living, and then you've applied this documentary making, you will have met so many people who've been are suffering with adversity. And obviously many of these are balanced conditions. But the only other people who tend to do that are clinicians who are there with a specific purpose of they're going to treat symptoms, or if they're psychologists, look to help with anxiety. So you, as a layperson, are there any observations? Have you seen any commonality, any common themes with those who have emerged from that awful period of the living hell, that then emerged to be in some ways stronger? Are there anything you can pass to us that might give us a clue?
Yeah,
of a good way
for
out?
sure. I would say that first of all, that quote, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, whatever, that's total BS. I think that we need to always, first of all, recognize that it takes a lot of resources, mental health, love, support, all of that, shelter, food first. Like, that foundation has to be there. If that's all there, then maybe it can, you can thrive in this. And I think that the thriving, what I was describing with Dylan and Brian and Elizabeth and so many more people, is they found a purpose in it. They had to create a meaning, what this disease meant to them and why it was happening to them. And I'm not saying that it's like the meaning with the capital M, because you don't have to be religious to go, I'm going to choose to create a meaning for this for me in my life. And the meaning might be that it's going to make me more a compassionate person. It's going to challenge my creativity. It's going to make me more courageous. Whatever that meaning is for you, that is what I've noticed in so many of these people, is they've decided to reframe it and said, this is going to do this for me, instead of this is what it's going to do to me. So I think we have to find out what it's doing for us. And then when that's the case, we can kind of work with it finally and go, maybe even look at it in the face and go, hey, sometimes thank you for being here, because you are teaching me to do this in my life. And that is my goal as a human being. So that is the takeaway from all the people I've talked to so far.
Brilliant. No, thank you. And I've got to say, it's been amazing to hear you today, but the content you're producing is just going to go on and help so many people in the future. The Life Rebalanced Chronicles, I've already said to a few members, whatever you do, get your loved ones, your partners, your family, whoever it is who doesn't understand, get them to watch these, because boy, will they understand it's not just their partner. It's not their partner going crazy. It's not something weird. This is what we all go through. So thank you so much for pulling together that idea and making that content happen. And
Kevin, before we go, Gemma just wants to be slightly nosy about Kimberly's cushion behind. She says, "Is it a raccoon riding a buffalo?" She's curious.
Very good eyes. It is a raccoon riding a buffalo.
Excellent. Look, Apologies to everyone. It's been so late today, but it's been well worth it. And apologies to you, Kimberly, getting you up so early on a Saturday.
This is meant so much to me. I'm so grateful.
All I'm going to say is this won't be the last we see of Kimberly. And Kimberly, it's not going to be the last you ever see of us, because we're definitely going to get you back. But brilliant and really insightful. And we look forward to seeing the next episodes of those wonderful documentaries. And more come, I'm sure. If I can just say before I forget to everyone, don't forget Saturday, October the 16th is the next meeting, where we'll have more delights for everyone. But brilliant today. Thanks so much, Kimberly. And you know, everyone put your microphones on and give a round of applause to Kimberly if you can, because it was really good, really excellent. Thank you so much. There you go. I've got to take up needle felting, which I've never heard of before today. But wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I think we're done. And
thanks, Kevin.
Everyone take care, and we'll see you all again in October. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye.